I don't want at all to say in any way our degree of suffering in the British movement or my degree of suffering is any way equivalent to the Palestinian people's. Quite clearly it isn't. Quite clearly the Palestinians are at the sharp end of struggle and are really feeling the boot of imperialism in a way that people in our country have not felt for a long time, and there are historical reasons for that I won't go into at this time. But they are two halves of the same coin of imperialist repression against the peoples of the world. They are both a reflection of the profoundly anti-popular nature of the regimes that call themselves the international community, the G8, the World Bank, the UN, but in reality all of whom represent a tiny clique of finance capitalists whose interests are as far divorced from the masses of the people as heaven is separated from earth. There is no crime that modern day capital will not commit in order to secure a healthy return on its capital. And this crisis of overproduction, far from making them learn, is simply pushing them to ever greater crimes. The current siege on Gaza, the occupation and wars against Iraq and Afghanistan are vivid proofs of these, as are the startling realities of the modern day world, of mass poverty and death by malnutrition and malnutrition-related diseases. In a world where half the world's population live on less than $2 a day, where 1 billion have no access to clean drinking water, where pandemics of HIV, TB and malaria, eminently treatable and preventable diseases, are rampant. These facts, together with the oppression of the people who stand against and seek to change these facts, are not accidents. They are the investment priorities of a decadent and parasitic monopoly capitalist society in its death throes. Palestine, therefore, is a British working class issue. Ultimately, in its pursuit of profit, the British capitalists are bound to come into direct conflict with the British workers. A foreshadowing, a taste of it, but this is a minor shadow. As the credit crunch, as the capitalist crisis of overproduction bites and brings us in the heartlands of imperialism face to face with this reality, the police will rely ever more heavily on their draconian powers, and we will see much more of the bad cop and much less of the good cop. I'm going to finish with a very short excerpt from a poem by one of my comrades, Godfrey Kramer, when he wrote about Bhagat Singh and Udham Singh, but he talks about the reason why why should we in the heartlands of imperialism, who seem to benefit so much from the exploitation of the rest of the world, why should we make a common cause with the oppressed people across the world? And I think I've made some of the answers plain. But he says, for the great imperial heel that straddles o'er the globe and tramples the oppressed of foreign lands, takes balance from the other foot, we feel. On both its feet, imperialism stands. Small comfort that we bear not all the weight, and that the heel grinds harder across the sea, for the lightest boot is heavy, and the prize of freedom is great. Perhaps by way of starting a discussion in terms of what can be done, I just written down some of the demands of the PSC, and if I just very briefly enumerate those to you, and perhaps we can open a discussion on that basis. So the PSC have called to several concrete measures. I think they're excellent ones. So obviously we're not in state power or we could affect them, but to popularise them as demands. And one is an immediate end to Israel's military assault on Gaza, an immediate end to the blockade and siege on Gaza, an end to Israel's violations of international law, an end to Israeli occupation, and for our government to suspend diplomatic relations with Israel by declaring the Israeli ambassador persona non grata and closing their embassy, to freeze military aid provided by British government towards Israel's defence, both arms and money, and to suspend trade agreements with Israel. And I obviously would invite everyone, I think you already are, to either join with the CPGB-ML, the PSC, and the Palestinian people in the struggle against Zionism and against imperialism, to end the siege of Gaza and victory to the Intifada.